Here is the recipe that I cook in this video. Feel free to screenshot, write it down, or copy from the description. With meat prices, and steak in particular, seemingly climbing every day, it's getting harder to justify eating it as a weeknight meal. The way I get around this is by turning less desirable cuts of meat into delicious meals. One way to do this is to use a sous vide machine, otherwise known as an immersion circulator. This allows you to slowly cook tough cuts of meat and tenderize them over the course of hours. This is how I turn a relatively cheap chuck roast into a delicious, tender, beefy steak. And, provided you have the time, it's surprisingly convenient, especially if you have it several days in a row. To begin, purchase a chuck roast that is about 2 inches thick. Choose chuck roast over chuck steak because chuck steak is usually cut too thin for this method. Once you remove it from the packaging and pat it dry, inspect the various sections. Chuck roasts are typically made up of 2 to 4 sections of meat separated by fat and connective tissue. Taking note of these sections, take a knife, cut them out and into steaks, trimming them of fat and connective tissue as you go. By the way, I made this sweet cleaver on a Saturday afternoon under the excellent instruction of Chuck from Tribal Edge. Check him out if you're in the West Michigan area. Not sponsored, I just really enjoyed the class. And here we have the trimmed steaks. 1 large steak, a medium one, and a couple of mini steaks. We're going to take these steaks and vacuum seal them, or if you're like me and don't have a vacuum sealer, we're going to seal them with the water displacement method. Just place the steaks in an appropriately sized plastic bag, then, partially sealing the bag, slowly lower it into a vessel of water. As you lower the bag in, the air will be forced out of the bag by the water, and you can just completely seal the bag at that point. As you can see, the result isn't a perfect seal, but it's close enough for the purposes of cooking. If you are going to cook the steak on the same day, you can salt the steak before it goes in the bag for more even seasoning. If you are not eating any of these steaks right away, you can go ahead and freeze them. To cook, secure the steak in the vessel with a clip and set your sous vide machine for 131 Fahrenheit for 24 hours. Now, realistically, it doesn't have to go that long. I have pulled it at 18 hours and it's been great, but the full 24 hours will result in the most tender product. Go ahead and cover that with something. I'm using tin foil, and all we have to do is wait. Alright, it's the next day and we are ready for dinner. I like to serve this with just a side of roasted vegetables. Here I have asparagus. I just cut off the woody bit on the bottom and toss those into the baking apparatus with some olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. I'm going to cook this in my air fryer at 350 for 15 minutes, but you can do this in the oven at 425 for about the same time. While that cooks, we can prepare our steak. If you want to have steak a couple of days in a row, after you remove the steak, you can replace it with one of the steaks we froze yesterday, minimizing setup time. The nice thing about sous vide is that we don't need to thaw the steaks before they go in. They should fully thaw in 30 minutes or so in the hot water. As for the finished steak, we don't need to cook it, it's fully cooked on the inside, but adding a nice crust will give us amazing flavor. We can also use the juices in the bag to create a pan sauce. For that, just snip a corner of the bag and pour the juices into a small container. To this, I'm going to add a glug of white wine and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. You can also add some seasoning as well, but that really doesn't have a huge effect. Set that aside. As for the steak, remove it from the bag and pat it dry with a paper towel. Add pepper, garlic powder, and if you didn't salt it before it went into the bag, add salt. On the stove, take a cast iron, carbon, or stainless steel skillet and pour in about a tablespoon of olive oil. Heat on medium-high until you can see wisps of smoke from the oil. Then, quickly, about 30 seconds aside, sear the steak in the hot oil on all sides. Set that aside and turn off the stove. Pour off the extra olive oil and add in the sauce mixture. Now, if you spent too much time searing the steak and let the pan get too hot, you will get something like this. This is still fine, but not ideal. Some of the spices from the steak have burned and will affect the taste of the sauce. If you are quicker and don't let it get too hot, you should be fine. Using a wooden spoon, scrape up the fond on the bottom. This has the added benefit of cleaning your pan. Once the sizzling has subsided, add a pat of butter and stir until melted and incorporated. Finally, when slicing the steak, take note of the direction of the fibers and slice against the grain into thin slices. And that is the finished meal, coming in less than $10 for a 20-ounce steak. You can see that it's perfectly medium rare from edge to edge. Just pour over sauce as desired and enjoy. Another way to sear this is on the grill. The advantage of this is that you can grill some veggies. Here I have some zucchini while you are searing your steak. This is also a way to quickly prepare a bunch of steak if you are serving a crowd. Once again, the steak only needs about 30 seconds aside on the hot grill. And that is the grilled version, objectively superior in my opinion. This is shockingly similar to more expensive steaks, and I would definitely recommend you give it a shot if you have a sous vide machine. Now, should you buy a sous vide machine just for this meal? I personally wouldn't ever buy a machine for just one purpose, but if you are cooking for a crowd and could see yourself cooking large, cheap roasts and other tougher cuts regularly, the sous vide is a great choice. And thank you for watching. This was a bit more of a niche video, but I have found this meal too practical and delicious not to share with you. Next time, the one technique to easily cook almost any fish.